It's me.
Okay, so chapter 17, this is actually the last chapter of animals that we're going to cover. We will do our dissection when we finish our first dissection. We're going to do the dissection of the frog.
Cool. We do that.
When we finish this chapter.
Yes.
Yes, you can touch it. It's all right.
I'll make you touch the frog.
Well, yeah. I'm like touching him already.
It'll be all right. It'll be all right.
Don't worry.
One of you, because we do it with an odd number, by the way, one of you is going to be working alone on that section. All right. All right. Okay. But first, we have to get through the introduction. Now, this is to the phylum, because we're in a new phylum of animals. This is phylum Chordata. And we're going to look at the characteristics. It's going to take us a couple days because it's in a short period. See, I'm wondering if we should dim the lights because this might be a little hard to see, especially if it gets too small.
We should dim the lights.
But I want to be able to see the right.
We can see. Underestimate our vision.
Yeah, I know I would be able to see. All right, so these are some of the characteristics that we find in the chordates, all right? So, first of all, there is a dorsal notochord. And what does that mean? See, the only problem is I wonder if dimming the lights would ruin the camera, or the filming the video.
Oh.
You know?
Try it and we'll see.
I wonder if he even watches.
He does. He does.
Well, like, does he?
Oh, does he watch or just listen?
Listen or?
Oh, he might just listen. I
So
don't
I'm
know.
wondering.
I would sucks.
It's like a podcast.
Well,
I just like listen to it while I do something else.
Let's try.
Well,
Maybe
but
it could actually make that brighter. This isn't like dim everything.
This week
around.
Let's open the blinds a little bit, too. Zach, you get the blinds.
It makes it subscribe to our channel, but you're not supposed to be able to see. That's why they're called blinds.
I wish I had my gloves.
No, my favorite anime.
Okay, that's good. That way there's still plenty of light.
You can still like see the thing.
What did you do? Did you like watch it?
What he just said.
Alright, anyway. So hopefully you guys can see it a little better now. It's a dark background. So a dorsal notochord, what does that mean? Now a notochord is a rod, basically, of tough, flexible tissue that runs the length of the body, and it serves as the primary support for the animal, yes.
Does this have all the ribs on it?
No, it does not. The notochord is flexible. It's not the vertebral column. It's not the same as the vertebral column. So this is flexible, it is support. For some chordates, though, the notochord, it stays throughout the life of the animal. It keeps this flexible support system rod. But in most chordates, what happens to it? I forgot. In one group, the notochord is only present in the larval stage, but by the time it's an adult, it has disappeared completely. But it's still in this phylum. It's kind of weird to think that it's in the same phylum as fish, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds. And you'll know what I'm talking about when we get to this subphylum. But because it has the notochord in the larval stage, that's why it's classified. It has other characteristics as well. It's classified in phylum Chordata. Now, in most chordates, though, the notochord is replaced by vertebrae. And that's really our focus is going to be on vertebrates. But we're just starting out with some general characteristics of all chordates. And they're called chordates because they have this chord.
It's a fisher chordate?
Yes. Yeah, most of the animals you think of that we classify, they're fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals.
So
Those are
just-
chordates.
yeah, so
But they are in subphylum Vertebrata.
Okay, so they just got one cord and then with all the ribs.
Yes. They do have it actually becomes bone. Their notochord does change to vertebrae.
Notochord sounds like a
instrument brand.
Yes, yes, it does.
Noto stand is for back. So, and then chord, of
Back
course, is
chord.
chord. So it's back chord. So maybe, yeah.
That's cool, man.
It's okay, my husband says he wants to start a band, and he wants to call it the Dobson Effect, so
It's a midlife crisis.
he can't play
I
an
thought-
instrument at all.
Does he sing?
He likes to sing to his skillet.
Yeah.
Music.
I feel you.
As loud as he can.
Mhm.
So maybe he can be the singer in the
Yeah.
rock band. Because all you have to do is scream anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so the vertebrae are the primary support in vertebrates, of course. Now, vertebrae, by the way, can be made of the flexible material we call cartilage, or they are made of bone. Because there are some animals that are all cartilage. If you put all the vertebrae together, we call that the vertebral column, or sometimes referred to as the backbone. It's funny, yeah. Okay, so every chordate has a dorsal notochord at some point in their life. Most of the time, it becomes a vertebral column. All right, second characteristic of chordates is the dorsal tubular nerve cord. So once again, it's dorsal.
Tubular, man.
All right, now we're talking like surfers.
Make the experience hard. Oh. What I walked into.
Sorry, you can't get from nerves to surfers.
Nerves.
All right, the nerve cord and the brain are the main part of the nervous system, of course.
I'll leave it.
The nerve cord is the dorsal nerve cord, so it's on its upper surface or its back.
This is chilly.
In those that are vertebrates, which is what our focus will be is on vertebrates, but in vertebrates, the vertebrae actually encase the nerve cord for protection. But if they are ones with just a notochord, then usually the nerve cord will be below the notochord.
Is this the first slide?
Yeah.
Except for the title slide.
Just as introduction for final chord balance.
But like this is where the notes start.
Yes, this is where the notes start.
Is this 17?
It is chapter 17. Okay, and then the third characteristic of all chordates are what we call pharyngeal pouches. Pharyngeal pouches. Now, these pharyngeal pouches are during embryonic, or they appear during embryonic development. And basically, they're just these folds of skin along what we would consider the neck area of the embryo. You know, an embryo doesn't really look like the full-grown adult vertebrate, but during its embryonic development, it has these folds of skin that we call pharyngeal pouches. Now, they're not actually pouches, like they don't hold anything. They call them pouches because that's what they look like. But they're just folds of skin. Now, if it's an aquatic chordate, these folds of skin underneath this area, the gills will develop, and so eventually there will be openings within this area to allow water to pass over the gills. That's an aquatic species, okay? The non-aquatic species never have gills.
What would be that person? What are we talking about?
Issues.
Chordates, animals.
Oh,
Eventually making our way to vertebrates. Because we've been talking about invertebrates
okay.
for the past couple chapters, so this chapter is about vertebrates. All right, and then if they're terrestrial, meaning they live on land, they don't live in the water, then these pouches will eventually develop into different structures, like the lower face, the neck area, the upper chest area. They don't remain as these pouches. It's just basically skin. And like I said, the embryo, at the stage where it has these pharyngeal pouches, it doesn't really look like a full-grown adult yet. It just is the embryo. And so it does grow, and the pouches are gone once it gets into its full-grown stage. But I want to point out again that there's never gills during embryo development at any time in terrestrial species. In aquatic species, yes, gills will develop, but in terrestrial species of chordates, they never have gills. Yeah, because it's like white background now. So there's the dorsal notochord, and that's showing where it's surrounded by the vertebral column. Or the vertebral column is the dorsal notochord, and then the nerve cord is surrounded by the vertebral column, and then the pharyngeal pouches, that's an embryo. And so those are the pouches that develop into different structures.
I'm just trying to find out where I wrote it.
Because if you can't read it, that's no problem. My fault.
Did you figure out where you left out?
Oh, it's just by vertebrae. I thought there was something after that.
Okay. But you know where you left off now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now let's look at the different, remember this is phylum Chordata. There's actually 3 subphyla in phylum Chordata. We're just going to very briefly go over 2, and then our focus is going to be on subphylum Vertebrata. But the first one is called subphylum Cephalochordata.
Head something.
Yes, cephalo does mean head, and chordata means cord, so it's head cord, basically.
Head cord.
Yeah.
Fish.
No, fish are vertebrates. These are a species where instead of the notochord becoming the vertebrate, the vertebral column, it just remains as a notochord. So flexible, it doesn't turn into bone or cartilage. The organism that is in this subphylum, or one of them, is the Amphioxus. No, not amphibians. Amphibians are vertebrates.
I am wrong.
This is sometimes called the lancelet, a slender marine animal about 2 inches long. It's like an eel. It says eel-like creature exists in tropical and temperate coastal waters. Lives half buried in the sand with its head exposed, feeds by filtering plankton from the water. Cilia around the mouth help circulate the water through the pharyngeal slits as it eats. Alright, so probably not something you've ever seen. Sounds like it stays buried in the sand most of its life. Alright, and then we have subphylum Urochordata. What is that? Tail? Tail. I think it's tail. Tail cord? Now, these guys only have the notochord during the larval stage. So the notochord is not retained through its whole life. It's only when it's in the larva stage that it has it. The organism here is called a tunicate, sometimes known as a sea squirt.
say when I cheered for Ace, that was our youngest team's name, the Sea Squirts, because they were
Really?
really tiny.
Some of the yarns from now on.
But these guys are sessile animals, and they do squirt water through their bodies, through pores.
Like NASCAR, coffee.
Their larvae are like tadpoles almost. They're tadpole shaped. And they have all the characteristics that we talked about, the pharyngeal pouches, the notochord, the nerve cord. But eventually they become this creature that looks nothing like any other animal you've ever seen. It doesn't really look like one at all. There's a picture of one in your book. It's hard for me to describe what it is, but if you want to see one, it's on page 392 in your book. There's also the amphioxus is on there, and then the tunicate is on there. If you want to see these creatures that you maybe have never seen before. 392.
Oh. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Wait. Okay, that's interesting.
That's like the whole body.
Yes, it's the bottom one. That's a tunicate.
Oh, I've seen those. That's like a heart, but in the water.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe what it is. It doesn't really look like an animal, but it is.
Looks like an organ.
Yeah.
Yes, let's think like veins or something.
So,
Yeah, it does kind of look like an organ of some sort, doesn't it?
Things rip.
Okay, it does say in coastal regions, hard clusters of colonial tunicates of the genus Amorosium break loose and wash up on the beach. The clusters are sometimes called sea pork. I don't know why, but there you go.
Sea pork.
Sea pork. All right, but those two subphyla we are not focusing on simply because the creatures are kind of weird and unusual. So now we have subphylum Vertebrata. Now, Robert,
Yes.
It's your time to shine.
Okay.
these guys do develop a vertebral column before they're born or hatched. Now that vertebral column can be made of bone or cartilage, because I know in some fish they only have cartilage, but then some fish are bony fish. So this is all of the creatures that you may think of as normal animals: fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals are vertebrates. And so for the rest of the time, we are going to focus on vertebrates.
Yeah. Bless you.
Thank you. I'm going to be spacing out there.
I already said it.
Bless you.
Yeah.
I just wrote interesting.
Or is it allergies?
I think it might be allergies. Who knows?
Extraterrestrial.
You know what? I've been
E.T. phone
naming-
home.
I've never seen so much now. Actually, you sneeze. You can't just.
All right, so let's move on to vertebrate classification. Vertebrates, now this is not a scientific classification, but vertebrates have been divided into two categories. First are what we call ectothermic. Now thermic, you probably know what that part means, right?
Heat.
Heat. Ecto, anyone know what that prefix means?
Ghost.
I know, it does not mean ghost.
External.
Outside, yes, outside. So these are your cold-blooded creatures, cold-blooded animals.
Oh, so the next
Reptiles, yep.
One, the next one would be endothermic, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Very good.
Great job.
All right, so cold-blooded means, or ectothermic means, that they do not have the ability to generate their own body heat. So the temperature of their body is dependent on the environmental temperature, right? So they cannot maintain a consistent body temperature. So they depend upon the heat from sources outside of themselves. That's why it means outside heat, ectothermic. They depend on the sun, basically. Or if you have any of these creatures as pets, usually you have a heat lamp for them.
Like my uncle,
Yeah.
he has all sorts of animals and all that, but he has to keep the lights on.
Oh, does he have a lot of reptiles?
Yes, he loves reptiles and all that, and like he wants to go to the shed and get
Dump 'em
them.
on.
Oh my gosh.
I wouldn't touch him, but
No.
nah, you as long as it stays in the cage, I'm good.
So you're good.
I know. I look for Monty. I love them.
He was the best one out of all
Who's
of
the
them.
head?
From Series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh.
The dude with all the snakes and reptiles.
There's someone that has a pet snake. She lets it out and like go wherever. it wants.
Must not be a poisonous one.
No, it's not. But it's just like it's so.
My
weird.
husband has had to kill, he's doing this big job, and he's had to kill several moccasins lately.
Oh.
Yeah.
Moccasins are.
Well, because they're digging up this
Is it good?
vegetation that's been growing for years and years and years, so they've stirred up the snakes.
Yeah.
All right, also, so these guys are pretty sluggish when it's cold, lots more active when they're warm, but also they can get too hot, so they can't spend all day in the sun, because then their blood would boil and kill them. So they do,
Wow.
it's true.
Okay.
So usually in the morning, they're kind of slow and sluggish, and then as they warm up, they get more active. And then they can be very active at night, because once the sun goes down, because they've been in the heat, they usually have to rest during the hottest part of the day, and then when it cools off again, they're a lot more active. So these are your fish, amphibians, and reptiles. A lot of people don't think about fish, but fish are cold-blooded, but they think they're in the water, so it doesn't really matter. But yes, fish do also like light. Although some fish live in the darkest depths, I understand that. But many fish live in areas where there's light that can penetrate through the water.
Aren't fish like? No, water's pretty cold down there.
Yes, the further down you go, the colder.
But they
That
have
is
the
correct.
thermal.
And also, but the coldness means that more oxygen is in it. So there's more life or fish living in cold water than in warm water,
Huh.
because there's more oxygen available.
I thought that it's like the center of the earth and all that, like in volcanoes and all that, heated the water.
Yeah, the water gets heated, but
It's not like.
it's warmer at the surface. The further down you go, the colder it gets.
That's got like rude.
Unless you got like to the bottom.
And
of
then
the earth part of it.
There are thermal vents under, in the deep depths of the ocean. And then there are some creatures living around that, but usually not fish. It's mostly things like bacteria or protozoa, things like that. But then you have some areas that are deep, but there's no thermal vents, so it's just really cold and
So weird
dark.
to think that like, in the water there's so many things that
My
don't
heart.
really exist.
All right, now, so then we have endothermic, which are your warm-blooded animals. Warm-blooded are not dependent on their environment. They're able to maintain their own body heat, can generate their own body heat, can cool their bodies down as well if it gets too warm. They adjust their activity to permit their bodies to generate more heat or to lose excess heat.
This is us.
No, this is not. We are not animals.
Sorry.
We are humans. But yes, we are able to do it ourselves.
Wait, I thought
Our
we were
bodies are
classified as like a mammal.
No,
Sorry.
no. That is an
Oops.
evolutionary concept,
Oops.
right? Do not think of men as animals. We are not. We are a special creation of God.
Wait a minute. I think I got that from when I went to public school or something. Like only you.
Oh yeah, there is a classification of man, and yes, it is in the kingdom Animalia, but that's an evolutionary concept that we are just merely animals.
I'm a monkey.
We know what.
Just crazy. Oh.
Okay, so the animals that are warm-blooded then, that leaves the birds and the mammals.
I'm sorry, but there's a
Okay, so like I said, this is not scientific classification, but it is a useful classification. And we are going to focus on the cold-blooded animals. After we go through the introduction, then we're going to focus on fish, amphibians, and reptiles. Sorry to say, we actually don't cover the chapter on the birds and mammals.
Oh.
Kind of skip that to get to the human anatomy.
Okay.
You're not complaining?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So
Oh, you're so close!
So cool.
I always
That's
feel.
fine. I planned on this for 2 days anyway, so.
I always like am so proud of myself when I can finish, like catch up. It's just like a good feeling. I'm always late.
Oh, you got them done. Wait, like
Done.
So moving on to form and function of vertebrates. We're going to divide this into several. Remember we taught the what's it called? The life processes, right? So we're going to go through the general characteristics of the life processes of vertebrates. First of all, support and movement. So how are vertebrates supported?
Like a cage or something.
Wow. What type of skeleton? Let me ask that.
a spoopy one.
Internal.
It's an internal skeleton, yes. It's called an endoskeleton, right? Endoskeleton, not an exoskeleton. Vertebrates do not need to carry along their skeleton like an insect does.
My epidermis is a bird.
What the heck?
The other day, I whispered something like really quietly, and Jarek was in front of me, but he heard it. But it was super weird because I thought like I said it like really quietly, and he just turned around and I don't know what you said. And I was like, everybody watch out, Jarek has spider senses.
Ooh. He's got a jacket too. Oh, fight! I thought
Okay.
we were bringing that back.
The endoskeleton,
Yeah.
the big thing about the endoskeleton is that it surrounds and protects and supports the organs. Because these guys have the organs that we are familiar with. All the invertebrates we've been talking about before didn't really have familiar organs. But vertebrates do. They have a heart, they have a brain, they have lungs. If they're not aquatic, they have lungs. They have the liver, and they have a stomach, and they have a pancreas, and all of those different structures that are familiar internal organs. So these guys have it. They might not look exactly like human internal organs, but they do have the same internal organs. Movement is accomplished by muscles that cover the bones, or if it's a flexible skeleton like in fish, then the muscle covers the cartilage. But the muscles cover the bones, and then they attach the bones to each other, and so movement is accomplished by contraction of muscles. The skeleton, by the way, is divided into two parts. You have what's called the axial skeleton. So if you think axis, the center, right, the axis, so that is the vertebral column, the skull, and the ribs.
Just a bit low Thursday, interesting. I woke up today.
Like this.
No, yes. Just kidding. I woke up today and I was so excited. I shot up in my bed at 6:25. My alarm went off. I was like, "It's Friday!" And then I realized it was Thursday. I was late for my face.
I always have
Oh,
scratch
what
projects
disappointment.
pushed back till Monday.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, your hair looks so cute.
You just noticed that?
Yeah, I've been a little busy right now.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and then we have the appendicular skeleton, which is divided into two parts. You got the pectoral and pelvic girdle. Pectoral girdle is toward the front. Pelvic girdle is the rear limbs, and then the limbs, if it has limbs, because we know that some vertebrates do not, like snakes. But the limbs don't have to necessarily be legs. They can be wings or flippers or fins.
Sorry, I like that word.
What?
Sounds like a doll.
Flipper like the frog from Hoodwink.
Oh.
Why do they call you flippers?
I've never seen that movie. You said you've never seen the movie? The first one was the only good one.
Yeah.
I don't think it was weird
There was
too.
just two.
The second
But,
one
like,
was
the second one came out years later.
and it was
like,
made by like some other company. and
Oh, was
It didn't have any of the same voices.
Yeah, it was awful.
Which is this?
I only got
Would
through
we-
like 10 minutes of the second one. I'm like, no, I can't do this.
But the original believe it or not, my husband and I went and saw that in the movie theater, and he was obsessed with it for a while. We had to buy it on DVD, and he would watch it every day.
That's amazing.
That's how
So
my
I know it pretty much by heart.
my cousin DJ was about the first Cars. He's older now. But
First
like, when he was
No,
younger,
but my husband is an adult, okay? This happened when he was an adult.
but then like anytime we still bring it up, and I'm like, DJ, remember when you used to be obsessed with cars? He's like, y'all stop, and he like still can quote the entire movie. I'm like,
That's
me with Shrek.
that was a good movie.
To make the bunny make the bunnies run for the hills.
They liked it.
The grandma's like, yes.
So good.
That's the movie with like Little Red
Take them
Riding
downtown.
Yes.
This is the forest. We don't have a downtown.
Hey, you know that guy we got in the game? You mean the creepy one? Better let him go. That one.
The bear walks by and like the jacket. No, red sword.
All right, circuit. Oh wait, is the time we are just about at time. We'll pick up there tomorrow.
We are.
Remember,
This is
folks,
chapter
you get another
17.
taste.
Yes,
You
we've
could
said that
get
several
it.
times.
Good night, everybody.
So there's no homework tonight. We will finish up hopefully the introduction tomorrow. All right, don't forget cameras.
I just wanna.
Oh,
Have fun.
all right, so Nate.
I just wanna.
Party.
Okay, I'm gonna turn on the lights, so it'll change.